Hello, Brobs. We're back with Ernie. Hemingway's? Ernie Hemingway's sister, Sonny, remembers, by Madelaine Hemingway Miller. Signed edition. We should go to chapter 2. The house on Kenilworth Avenue. It is a lonely business searching my memories back through the many years since I was a child in Oak Park, Illinois, and during the summer months at Walloon Lake in northern Michigan. If only Ernie or Ura was alive to talk with, we three shared so many years of companionship. It would be easy to talk and remind each other of interesting incidents. Anson T. and Adelaide Emmons Hemingway at the 444 North Oak Park Avenue house. Grandfather lived to 87 and grandmother to 84. Grandfather and grandmother Hemingway with 5 of their children, Nettie, Tyler, Clarence, George, and Grace. Will was in China. I remember our home in Oak Park vividly. When my mother, Grace Hall Hemingway, drew up the plans and worked out the details of our Oak Park house, she and her father, Dr. Clarence Hemingway, planned on having 6 children. The location she picked was at the corner of Kenilworth Avenue and Iowa Street. At the time the cornerstone was laid, on April 4th, 1906, there were already 4 children. Madelaine had been born in 1897, Ernest on July 21st, 1899, Ursula in 1901, and I, Madelaine, on November 28th, 1904. We 4 had all been born in the house on Oak Park Avenue at the head of Superior Street. Carol was born at the Walloon Lake Cottage in July 1911. Leicester in 1915 became the only child born in the new home. There's baby Ernest. It does look like him too. I mean, it should, since it is him. There's the Oak Park house. Nice house. Our house on Kenilworth Avenue was unique in many ways. As an amateur architect, Mother was far ahead of her time, and the new house included many interesting innovations. I remember the large cement-lined fruit cellar, stacked with home-canned fruit and vegetables, and barrels of apples and potatoes. Then there was a laundry room with built-in tubs, and in it a gas hot plate where we sometimes saw wax heating before being set in molds and made into candles, or lead being melted to make bullets. When we children wanted to make some messy candy such as taffy, we were sent to the laundry stove, where we wouldn't interfere with the routine upstairs. The workroom was a fascinating place, well equipped to build or fix all manner of things, and full of gadgets stored in boxes and trunks. There was a coal bin in the cellar, of course, often used by our pet cat for excrement. Luckily, the coal, before it was shoveled into the furnace, turned out to be a deodorizer. There was also an area for the fireplace wood that was delivered outside and sent down a chute through a window. The first floor had a large icebox and cupboard area in the hall adjacent to the large kitchen. Above the gas kitchen stove were skylights, and these opened up onto a small second-story porch. The dining room had a large built-in buffet covering the south wall. Mother had saved many oil sketches painted by her mother, Carolyn Hannock Hall, and she incorporated these 12 by 18 sketches into a frieze bordered with, and the pictures separated by 4-inch boards of walnut. The paintings were at about eye level and became immediate conversation pieces for anyone entering the room. There's Ernie as a child in a painting. I remember the big windows in the dining room facing the backyard. We felt such joy when beautiful Jack Frost sketches surprised us there on a wintry morning. The dining room itself was large enough for an upright practice piano, along with the huge round dining room table, with its many leaves stored away that were extended for big family gatherings. The outside door in this room led to the backyard porch and another entrance to the music room. Beautifully designed leaded glass doors with a rose motif led to the living room. These doors always had to be protected, and we children each learned early never to slam them. Marceline, 7 years, Ernest, 5.5 years, and Ursula, 2.5 years, preparing to go sledding. And I remember the music room. The 30 by 30-foot music room on the north side of the main house was 2, then 3 steps down from the living room. Mother had insisted that this room be engineered to have perfect acoustics, and it had. We always heard about her plan to add a big pipe organ, but that wish never materialized. The grand piano, numerous musical instruments, later my full-size harp, together with oversized furniture and a 6 by 6-foot raised platform for singers or performers, filled this room with elegance. It was especially beautiful at Christmas time, when Daddy would arrange to have a very tall tree from the third Congregational Church festivities delivered to this room in time for us to trim. The room was not without its hazards, though. After one buxom lady guest fell, not seeing the steps at the entrance, someone always had to be stationed there at large functions to warn the unknowing. Above the steps was a balcony. The length of the room reached only from a landing near the second-floor level. The many folding chairs Mother needed for her recitals or musicals were stored on this balcony, which was also a lovely private place to hide or to be alone. The living room was carpeted in a forest green that wore very well. It must have been able to take the abuse we all gave it, since this carpet was never changed in the 20-some years I walked on it. The large red brick fireplace with its crane and kettle had an extra-wide mantelpiece. Sometimes the big Davenport was under the large front window that faced out onto Iowa Street, and sometimes seasonally in front of the fireplace. The thick door leading to the vestibule was leaded glass. 2 shields that Mother had designed were incorporated in it. They showed 2 clasped hands, a calla lily, and a shining sun for friendship, peace, and happiness. Mother said. This door led to an outside door that was so thick and heavy it once slammed during a windstorm and cut our poor pet cat's tail right off. There was the cat squealing under a chair on the porch, and inside was most of his tail. Thankfully, he healed well after Daddy's expert emergency treatment. Whatever the cat had been christened escapes me, but from that time on, he was known as Manx. The adjoining library, filled with books and many stuffed birds and animals, Dad was an amateur taxidermist, served as a waiting room for Dad's patients. His office had a business desk, medical instruments in a cabinet, bookcases filled with medical books, and an operating table. The lavatory closet harbored a full-size skeleton. Each of the children was allowed to take Susie Bonaparte, as we called her, to school when we were in the right grade for such a study. Since a great number of house calls were made in those days, Dad's office hours were very flexible. Often he'd see patients in the evening, and I can remember many times when he'd come out of the lavatory entrance and ask us patiently to quiet down. We never realized how noisy we were, either in play or argument. The entire household was trained to answer the doctor's telephone intelligently and never to use the phone needlessly or for too long a time. We did our best, but there were some hilarious mix-ups. Like the time Louise Steffenhagen, our maid, took a message that Dad was to call the banker's wife when it should have been the banker's life insurance company. On the first landing up the stairs from the living room was a huge mirror. I can remember how Ernie practiced his boxing on this landing. He would stand in front of the mirror and work very seriously, feinting and throwing punches. Shadowboxing, he called it. Sometimes he'd ask me to punch him in the stomach as hard as I could to prove how firm his muscles were. I'd do so, and he'd never flinch. The rest of the family, observing as we made funny faces at each other to extend the fun, were amused. Mother and Dad's master bedroom held two 3/4 size brass beds and bird's eyes maple dressers. There was also an outlet to a speaking tube that extended to the front porch. We'd whistle through it and then open a flap to speak. 4 other bedrooms were on this floor and 3 more on the floor above. We each had a turn at each of them for our own. Along with the maid's room on the 3rd floor, there was a clothes chute that led to the laundry and a host of cupboards and storage drawers. After World War I, we found one drawer filled with choice canned goods that Mother had stored away. We all had a good laugh when we noticed, among her survival foods, cans of lobster, crab meat, and shrimp. The house on Kenilworth Avenue was large and always full of activity. Each of us children was very individual in temperament and ability. Mother, who had studied to be an opera singer and later painted seriously, encouraged any artistic talent she spotted in us. Ernie always wanted to write. They soon learned that I had musical abilities. Mother, like Dad, expected great things from her children and always urged us to excel. According to our needs, we were given special instruction on necessary freedom. But Mother and Dad could also be sharply critical of our failures. Let us look at some pictures for a bit. Though Mother loved all her children, she had very high standards of conduct, an achievement that she wanted us to live up to. While we all did much that she wanted done, it sometimes seemed as if we could never really satisfy her. Her criticisms and disappointment could show unexpectedly, and sometimes we thought unfairly. Because we were all so different, arguments were common in our household, and we often took partisan sides. There were stormy times that took a good while to forget. We all thought, for instance, that Mother favored Madelaine, her firstborn, but none of us would use Marce's tactics of threatening to run away or kill herself if she didn't get what she wanted. Sometimes a rebellious child had to be disciplined, but love and respect for our parents prevailed during our early years, and their authority was rarely questioned. Dad particularly enjoyed Ernie's companionship, especially teaching him much about folklore and the fine points of swimming, fishing, and hunting as well, which they did a lot of together up at Walloon Lake during the summers. That's the family. All right, Bob. That's all for chapter 2. Until next time, goodbye.